Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Hector Del Castillo, Chief Product Officer at Bold PM, and it is a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much, Marcia, and everyone else at PMI Silver Spring Chapter for inviting me to be tonight's guest speaker. And today's topic is something that is very relevant because if you are right now either working in a small company or a mid-market company for that matter, you're probably going through lots of meetings with your owners, your executives, and figuring out what's going to happen because there may be some significant changes in the market and you're trying to predict the future and you don't have a crystal ball to do so. So tonight's discussion will hone in on understanding the complexities of how different companies are being impacted by the crisis that has been triggered by this COVID-19 pandemic. And we're going to be discussing a few things. And before we do so, I actually would like to give a shout out to everyone at the PMI Silver Spring chapter. This is my home chapter, so I've actually have spoken multiple times here. I think that it's been a while, though. I don't think I did anything with the chapter because I was actually traveling quite a bit last year in 2019. And I was actually on track to also be part of your symposium, which I believe has now been shifted to later in the year. And I also want to give a shout out to Podcast Village because they actually produce great HD video and podcast content from every single thing that I do. All my talks for the last few years have been captured and then shared with everyone who has attended as participants. And tonight's discussion is no exception. We are recording this entire thing, so we're asking all of you to put yourselves on mute, as well as there will be a time where we can do Q&A. You have access to the Q&A window, so be sure to type in your questions. I'm going to go through the material quite fast. I have a lot of material to share, but this is by design because during the Ask Me Anything period, which is the Q&A, we'll have plenty of time to actually respond to anybody's questions. Also, if you're on Twitter, you can use these particular hashtags and also these handles. I also sent out this information via chat, so you can actually just cut and paste from the chat window this information. The hashtag resilience, hashtag digital transformation, handle PMI SSC, that is the chapter's Twitter handle, and then my own, at HM Del Castillo. So if you're on Twitter, you can actually use these hashtags and I will retweet or reshare anything that you're sharing with your followers. That's usually what I do as we are covering different material. Also, if you're interested in watching the replay, I will put together a landing page post-event where I will share the slides and the video and the podcast all in one page. If you actually click through and sign up on the web form that's on this page, this URL, and I actually sent out the URL also via the chat earlier, so you should be able to click through it, fill out the form, and then you'll get an automated reply saying that you're in. You will receive after tonight's live session a link to that post-event page where you will see the entire content, so you can actually watch the replay and maybe watch it in slow motion if you have to. So tonight's discussion is going to hone in on this particular question, and that is, how can you boost the resilience of your business or your organization to persevere through the current COVID crisis all the way through recovery? And we're going to share some discussions as to what most experts and analysts are saying today is bound to happen, most likely to happen when everybody's trying to predict what just happened and how long before we recover. And we'll discuss the following: why adaptability, agility, and speed matters within any organization that is going to persevere. 10 ways that the COVID-19 crisis can impact your organization or your business. 7 ways to boost your business resilience. And then 7 steps to accelerate digitization of your entire business model. And then, of course, we're going to have the Ask Me Anything period, which is a Q&A. Before wrapping up tonight's discussion. So before we get started, I actually want to pose this particular poll. How have you been impacted by the COVID-19? And you can actually choose any of these. And I think I have access to that poll. So let me get to it. Yes, here we go. And actually, I'm going to put, there's two different, actually, there's different questions here. But if you can actually respond to question number 1, I'm going to launch the poll. And then you'll see that this particular question. And the choices are, you're either now unemployed or underemployed as a result. There's no impact. You're still continuing to work as usual. You're now mostly teleworking 100% of the time. You're unhappily employed now, and there may be several factors. We'll talk about that. Or you're overwhelmed with work. So any of these choices, pick the best one. It's a single choice, and then we'll give you a few seconds to actually respond to this particular poll number 1. And that's it will give you a few minutes to actually look at. So if you can actually press on the polls, you'll see question number 1, and if you can respond to this, I want to kind of share to see where you're at, where the audience is at. So if you're unemployed, just click through that. If you're no impact, you're same as before, click that. If you're teleworking mostly, do that. If you're unhappily employed, do that, or overwhelmed with work, and we can actually see that response. And I don't see anybody responding. So are you guys seeing the poll?
This is David Craig. I can see it, but I can't click on it.
Interesting. So,
yeah, same here. This is Marcia.
Okay, so I tell you what, just respond via the chat. Do a reply all via the chat, and I will read the chat line to see what you guys are responding with. So if you can just use the chat window and respond one of these 5 choices, I can just read off and make sure you share it with everybody. So some of you are saying you're teleworking, which is not surprising. That's the majority of most everybody. And I think I'm seeing a lot of people teleworking. One of you saying no impact. A couple of you have saying no impact. And the majority of yours are teleworking. Are any of you unhappily employed or overwhelmed with work? So I'm seeing same as before, no impact and teleworking. None of you are unhappily employed or overwhelmed with work. Well, one of you saying, yes, lots of work while teleworking. That's good. All right, so let's move on and find out what this means. We're going to talk about current situation, what most experts are saying about today's economy, and this is specifically to the US. So if you've been tracking what most of us are doing, just because we're now are teleworking, the majority of us, that's what the poll is showing. Majority of everybody here in this audience is teleworking. Guess what we're doing? More and more of us have our mobile devices on our hands, and we're downloading lots of mobile applications that we never had used before, and now we have to. And this is a global phenomenon because just the downloading of applications, mobile applications worldwide, has created a surge in data consumption that is an increase of 52%. And this is a 52% increase compared to the last 3-year average for the same time period, basically for the spring, the first quarter of 2020. So most of us are downloading some new apps that we don't have in our phones. And this amounts to worldwide several hundred petabytes of information as different applications, multiple different types of applications are being downloaded. So which applications are these? Good question. Here's the answer. Same organization is saying these are the top downloaded applications as of end of March of 2020. The top 10 worldwide, doesn't matter whether you have an iPhone or an Android device, these are the top 10 downloaded applications. So are you surprised by this? TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, Netflix, Snapchat. Well, oh, by the way, Zoom is number 3. And then Google Classroom. So we'll talk about specifically the surge in demand, and the winners obviously here are Zoom. That's the number 1 winner because everything else is a social media channel. No surprise there. but Zoom is number 3 worldwide. So not only are you guys adopting Zoom, everybody else in the world is adopting Zoom right now. And because of that, we're going to talk about what is happening to Zoom's valuation as a business. Has anybody used Google Classroom? I haven't. Most schools around Montgomery County that are using something, they're using Zoom as well. So we'll talk about that. The second poll is, how has demand for your product been impacted? Whatever your offering is, whether it's a product or set of products or a service for your organization. If you're working in a B2B environment or maybe you're selling to consumers, what is consumption like? And because the polls are not available, I would just ask that you pick one of these 5 and just type it into the chat, and that will share what the majority of you are typing in as your what's happening to demand of your offering. So the offering is you're either selling a set of products, tangible things, or you're selling services. That's what you're selling in the marketplace. And significant drop in demand means your sales have gone down like double digit and tanked, right? Or you're some reduction in sales revenue, or same demand in sales as before, or higher demand. It means that now your revenue's gone up, or now you're seeing overwhelming demand and everybody's buying, and now you're having to keep up with that demand, and maybe you may be back order. These are the 5 options. Type them in and I will read them out from the chat. Some of you are saying same. You must be in GovCon, because that's pretty much the only one. If you're commercially, you would be at both extremes today, right? The example of Zoom, they're experiencing overwhelming demand. If you're in oil and gas, you're seeing significant drop in demand and long-term drop in demand. This is not going to come back in 2020, right? We'll talk about that. So as I see that many of you are sharing, some of you are saying, yeah, there's high demand and budget cuts as well. Whoa. We'll talk about what that means, because if you're experiencing high demand and budget cuts as well, Houston, we have a problem for your business. We'll talk about what that means. So let's move on. Here's McKinsey. McKinsey published this report at the end of March and actually started measuring their estimate based on 9 different scenarios about GDP loss for 2020 for all of US, across all of US industries. And this is what they published. This visualization saying on the left are the most heavily impacted, where they're experiencing a huge drop in demand. Sales revenue has gone down. And no surprise there, this includes oil and gas. This is why crude oil they were giving it away a month ago, because there's so much surplus right now. Commercial airlines, they're not traveling, they're grounded, so cost and 0 revenue. Air travel, cruise lines, anything entertainment, those are the most impacted. And this is actually loss in real GDP, gross domestic product. Then insurance and banks, so that's financial services, our next category on the right. And then you see on the extreme right, the ones that are least impacted: consumer services, retail. I'm going, really? Retail is not impacted? What if you're a non-essential retail business? I think there's a few exceptions in retail. Then logistics and trading, and then high tech, and then pharmaceutical. No surprise there. Healthcare and pharmaceutical are right around here, if you can see my cursor. This is an entire full report, and I can share where that you can find it, because this was actually made available for free by McKinsey, published and put out in the open, because they actually were hired by the World Economic Forum to put together this scenario. And what they stipulate is that this right now, everything on the left are industries that are impacted at depression levels, as in Great Depression of the 1930s, not recession. The ones on the left, the ones on the left are depression level. The ones on the right are recession level. But the ones that are at the recession level, the ones that are in the middle, are impacted at a higher impact, negative impact, compared to the last Great Recession of 2007. And the equivalent is that today, this recession, because we have, as of this week, we have started going into a recession, because it takes 2 quarters of downward GDP to actually be officially in a recession. We're officially entering at the end of this month, and we're not recovering. We have gone so far down, and the stock market just opened up a week ago, and we haven't recovered, right? And everybody's saying this is going to take longer than the recession that we had in 2007, and that one took maybe 12 to 18 months for us to come through. Everybody's saying that right now, most likely, maybe 2 to 3 years for the ones that are on the right-hand side. The ones on the left-hand side are at depression level. Airlines, cruise lines, everything entertainment, to recovery means long-term, maybe 7 to 10 years. Do you know how long it took for the airline industry to recover from 9/11, once 9/11 occurred? They had just recovered back to the higher level in 2019, compared to the way that we were traveling domestically and abroad, airlines, before 9/11. It took them close to 15 years to get back to the same demand as we were before. And right now, they're back down. They're back down to that level. So these industries is going to take 10 to 15 years more than likely. And that's if nothing goes wrong. So this is what McKinsey is kind of putting in between the lines. So where are you? Where is your company? Which industrial sector do you belong in? And what is the impact? Because this is your demand. If you're here, you're seeing complete drop in demand, and your tanking and recovering is not going to happen anytime soon, right? If you're on the right-hand side, you might recover within maybe 2 or 3 years back to where you were. And if you're seeing overwhelming growth in demand, well, there are niches that are in growing, and we're going to talk about which are those niches, because it's not the majority. As you see, the majority of industries are down. There's only a few very smaller niches that you can't see here because these are more granular, that are actually emerging and growing right now. We'll talk about that. So the potential difference between, basically stopping the virus dead on its tracks, like bring out the raid for the virus, or recurring, is an additional $5 trillion in lost GDP for all of US. This is McKinsey saying the same thing, that just published this report, a follow-up last week. So what is the cost of having a recurrence? $5 trillion to the US economy. And we've already lost maybe about 4 trillion so far. So 4 trillion and counting, and it may go up to another 5 trillion if there is a recurrence, which we'll talk about what happens when people are not social distancing because of current unrest. That is the risk to the economy. And we don't control that because this is consumption, right? This is consumer confidence. And right now, consumer confidence is way down. The rapid migration to digital technologies has also been touted, right? But the majority of companies, no matter what industry we showed earlier, are lagging in digitizing their business because they never thought they needed to, right? And this is where you see companies like Sears going out of business because they never really foresaw that digital players were going to overtake in retail. E-commerce is taking over retail. Companies like Amazon and a few others, we'll talk about some of those. But JCPenney went out of business just last week. They filed for bankruptcy last week, right? And this is going to continue in retail because there are some players that were losing before, and they're definitely going to go out of business before they ever see recovery. And they're going to go on a fire sale as companies. Then the same experts are saying that the only organizations that are actually have a chance to persevere and then scale back to the next normal when recovery begins are the companies that very quickly adapt data, meaning data solutions, analytics, and continue to digitize their entire business. And we're going to talk about what that means. Folks, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the lifestyle type of businesses, because digitization, there's a lot of failure, and you need to invest early, accelerate without any revenue for some time. And that's what most people are saying, that's the reason why they haven't digitized enough of their business. So we're going to talk about 10 ways that COVID-19 can impact any business, whether your business is a B2B or B2C, or even an NGO or nonprofit organization or a federal agency. And this is a poll, but what I would like to do is to take the top 5 that are happening to your organization. Doesn't matter whether you're a B2B or a B2C or an NGO or a nonprofit or a government contractor, you're being impacted somehow by one of these factors. Take the top 5 that apply to your organization and share that on your chat, and I will share what I'm seeing on the chat. So just pick any of 5 of these and we'll see what you guys are typing. So I can tell you that what I asked earlier had to do with either lost sales or delayed sales, right? That is lost revenue, because sales that was about to happen this quarter or next quarter or the quarter after that aren't happening at all this year, right? Or you just lost them. Or cancellations means you're getting a lot of returns, like people want a refund, they want their money back, and they're not coming back because they can't afford that solution anymore. And I see a few of you are saying changing customer needs, definitely changing dynamics for customer interactions. Yes, because now all your customer meetings are Zoom meetings, video conferences, not face-to-face. New remote collaboration requirements. Yes, everybody's Zooming now instead of reporting to work at a physical location. And I'm saying Zoom because Zoom is a #1 video conference application being used by businesses today, but also by schools, public schools in US, and also for social networks. Like, have you attended any Zoom graduation parties lately? I have. Zoom is being used for multiple things, not just for social things, but also for education purposes and also for business. And this is why Zoom is emerging. And they had a very successful IPO just last week. And we're going to move on to the next one and share now the 10 ways. These are all the different things that could happen to any business because of COVID-19. And some of these are about revenue. Some of these about your cost structure rising without increase in demand, which means less profitability for your business, possibly getting into negative cash flow situation. These are all the things that people are struggling with right now because they need to shrink before they can figure out what to do next. So Zoom and GoToWebinar, right? GoToWebinar, WebEx are legacy systems. And everybody who's used that probably is using it just because you don't know how to use Zoom. I've been a Zoom user for 3 years. I'm an early adopter. I'm an expert. I'm even training people on how to use Zoom the right way. The problem is that most everybody who's just adopting Zoom for the first time, they don't know how to use, they don't know how to configure, because they just started, right? And they think that it's just great to use, but because it is, and it is easy, it's simple to use, but doesn't behave anything like GoToWebinar or WebEx or any of the other legacy systems. And that is good from my point of view. Because what you see here, my virtual background that is branded, I can't do that on GoToWebinar. I can't do this on WebEx. I may be able to do it on Microsoft Teams, but Microsoft Teams doesn't have the same functionality from a business point of view for business meetings as Zoom does. And this allows me to create this experience where you're seeing my brand and somebody else's brand, and then the reason why I'm here in front of you, right? This gives a completely different experience that most people don't know how to do. And it's very easy to do on Zoom. This is why Zoom is winning in the market in today's post-COVID-19 crisis. And they will continue, and it's actually bringing a lot of new players, because I'm seeing now a lot more new video conferencing applications that are coming on board in the market now as we speak. 7 ways to boost business resilience. We talked about the 10 ways you could be impacted, for any organization can be impacted. Now we're going to talk about 7 ways that you can actually boost resilience. So first of all, can anybody tell me, what does business resilience mean? If you can pick one of these 4 answers, and actually if you don't have to type it in, just tell me it's number 1. This is being number 1. This is number 2. This is number 3. This is number 4. This is number 5. Type in your number 1 through 5, only one number, on the chat, and let me see what you guys are stating. So some of you are saying 1, some of you are saying 3, some of you are saying 4, some of you are saying 1. You're all over the place. So why is everybody talking about resilience when they don't even know what resilience means? Because that's what experts are doing, right? And I'm going like, okay, resilience. Yeah, I understand what resilience means, but what does it mean from a business point of view? And are small business owners and mid-market executives and owners going to know what it means and how to deal with resilience? No, I don't think so. And this is only going to, any delay in figuring out what to do when you need to boost the resilience of your entire business is only going to delay getting back to profitability for your business, right? It's really going to stop any new hiring or any rehiring of anyone that just has been furloughed, for instance. So time is of the essence. Here's my definition of business resilience. It's an organization's ability to rapidly adapt, because survival of the fittest, Darwin's, in the market is about who can adapt quickest in the right direction to make sure that your business perseveres to any economic downturn. And it is possible, but you need to know exactly what you should be doing based on market and industrial conditions. Not just the climate, but also the microclimate. Not just the macro level, look at the micro level because it matters. And respond accordingly to eliminate any disruptions in your business, to safeguard your people, keep them safe, your assets as an organization, and maintaining business continuity at all costs. And all of this translates into one simple thing. Business continuity means for any organization, whether you're a small business or a middle market company, positive cash flow. Month to month, quarter to quarter, remain with positive cash flow. Because when you have negative cash flow, you're incurring debt. Yes, you might have revenue, but your cost structures are much higher than your revenue, and that is negative cash flow. And that's not a sustainable situation for the long term. So you need to become cash flow positive. That's what business continuity means. Before you can get to resilience, you've got to put your business continuity plan in place to actually ensure that you remain cash flow positive, even if there's a significant drop in your sales. And here's the characteristics. Those of you that understand business modeling, this is the business model canvas, and the right-hand side is all customer facing. That is your front stage. That is, you're measuring the desirability of your offering, even though customer needs have changed or their desires have changed, all those things. Your interactions with customers, the expected experience has changed. That is your front stage. And anything that impacts the front stage impacts your revenue streams. Backstage is the stuff that goes on, not seen by customers, right? But this includes your workers and your core business functions, resource allocation, and budgets for those things, including the management of all your suppliers, supply chain management, and your partners. When you're taking in your licensing or renting or leasing or taking input from any of these partners or suppliers. And all of these are what? Cost structure. And you're going to turn that from CapEx to OpEx, and even more, OpEx from being variable costs, which the more you use, the higher your cost, to fixed costs. So part of that resilience is figuring out what to do on the backstage, what to do on the front stage so that you can maintain the viability of your company, which number one rule is stay positive cash flow. Then after that, you can start figuring out how to actually become more profitable over time, especially when you're looking at your direct competitors in the same market. The true essence of resilience is that your business becomes more profitable under the same market conditions as your direct competitors in the same market. And you got to do things on the front stage, you got to do things on the backstage, and you got to do things on how you're actually measuring not just revenue and cost structures, measuring profitability, and then benchmarking through competitive analysis against your direct competitors in the same market. All of these things that I just said, you want to be able to automate, because you're not going to be able to do this when you have everything on multiple spreadsheets, which is what most small business owners do in addition to mid-market companies. This is not something that you do on spreadsheets. You're going to be on spreadsheet hell if you're trying to do all this analysis for the front stage, for the backstage, and looking at the profitability of your business and how do you actually measure profitability for your business. Because all three is what I would call you're measuring and managing the performance of your entire organization. That's what you want to do. And furthermore, when most organizations are actually on the right-hand side doing optimization, and that's all they've been doing majority of the past 5 years, and very little to no exploration, resilience means that you need to do optimization and exploration at the same time if you want to scale quicker than everybody else once recovery begins. So your plan to actually not just persevere should be about scaling back. And scaling means that not only optimize your entire business model, you also need to start exploring. And then you need to know exactly how much you can explore when you need to spend the majority of your funding doing optimization of your business model. You need to do both if you want to scale back, because other than that, you may persevere, but you're not going to be gaining over anyone without actually being able to explore as well. And all of these take resources, time, funding, and tools to be able to perform. So in summary, here's the 7 things that we talked about. Business resilience and boosting business resilience means that you may have to do any of these things, right? You set up your resilience nerve center, meaning now you have a war room within your company and you have a champion at the highest level, either the CEO or maybe an executive or maybe a couple of executives within the company, looking at what's going on and how are we doing on the front stage, on the backstage, and on the profitability side, choosing the right leaders, teams to actually start deploying things across your entire business. Simplifying your business model means simplifying your structure, your systems, your tools, your processes. Rethink your business model, which means shed cost structures at all costs, convert CapEx to OpEx, and then OpEx from variable to fixed. And the same thing for revenue streams, not one, but multiple revenue streams to the same offering. You're not changing the product, you're repackaging it and repricing it based on how you're selling it in the market. And the more ways differently that you find to sell your product and create new revenue streams, even better, because that will keep you floating without having to sell a lot more than your current offering. Not new things, just the same offering, repackaging. Unlocking your balance sheet, because how many of you see what the profitability of your organization is doing? If you're not the owner, you have visibility? Not usually, because most owners think it's top secret. Well, guess what? If somebody's going to have to track and manage profitability and they're going to have to assign it to somebody, somebody's going to have to own that entire piece that is about how do we measure and how do we manage profitability and make sure that we're going in the right direction, not in the wrong direction. You got to unlock the balance sheet, and usually that's a CFO and their teams, meaning a chief financial officer, for those of you that are unfamiliar with acronyms. Then accelerate digitization of your business model, because that's the only way you're going to turn variable costs into fixed costs. Digitization, that's a promise of why you want to do digitization. And then use metrics. And these are new metrics that you don't have and you may not even have access to before, because you may track lots of information if you've been around for a few decades, but this is going to require new metrics to be in place, and that's what you need as new analytics to track the progress of everything. And this whole thing, the 7 different things, you're not launching a project, you're launching a program. It is not a project, it's a program. So let's just move on to the next one. Enterprise. How many of you have actually used Enterprise? So Enterprise is one of the few companies that right now is growing, and they were growing faster than every of their competitors. They were doing it before, even faster. In North America, they were growing, outpacing Hertz and Avis. Even though Hertz and Avis are global, they're trudging along, keeping pretty much the same growth rate, very slow. Enterprise was growing, right? And you know what? Enterprise is still growing right now. You know why? Simple. How many of you are still having to drive to and from a few things, even though we're all supposed to be in lockdown here in the DMV area? How many of you have seen accidents occur where now, the beltway gets closed or a major avenue gets closed because of an accident? People are just freaking out. And even though there's not much traffic, people are still getting into accidents. So Enterprise is targeting people who get into accidents, and that's who their target. And just based on that, there's still a lot of accidents going on right now around US and all of North America where they operate. And that's who they're targeting, and they're outselling Hertz and Avis, because no one is renting from Hertz and Avis at the airport or hotel right now. And that's where they mostly have locations, long-term leases that they cannot shed overnight for Hertz and Avis. Enterprise does not have that in their business model. They have that for maybe some of the brands that they have acquired, like Alamo and National, but Enterprise by itself is still a leader right now. 7 steps to accelerate. So we talked about 7 things that you can do to actually boost the resilience within any organization. Now we're going to talk about 7 steps that when you need to accelerate digital transformation, what can you do to accelerate? And we're going to talk about this very quickly. I'm going to give you some examples. And I want to share with you who's leading digital transformation efforts in your business. Is it the chief executive officer, your chief digital officer, your chief data officer, your chief information officer, or is it COVID-19? Share your answers via the chat. I'll be reading a few. And kid you not, COVID-19 is the clear winner, because all of these C functions have been around for the last 10 to 15 years. And what COVID-19 has shown is that even though people reportedly that saying 74% of companies up until last year that had been surveyed said, yeah, we've had some sort of program started, 2 years ago or less, the majority of them didn't do enough. And this is why they got stuck with nothing else to offer, because they don't have enough digitalization, especially when they're trying to sell, when they need to sell now digitally, which means a mobile app or a web portal or any combination of that, and going into third parties like eBay or Amazon These are distribution channels that are online. So you have to have a combination of all those because all of those are digital revenue streams for your offering. If you don't already have those agreements in place, you're behind. And we'll talk about what happened to the food service industry because of lack of digitization in their business. So here's my definition of digital transformation. It's a radical rethinking of your organization's business model that includes integration of technology, yes, to meet changing buyer behavior, increase customer perception, the perceived value of your offering by customers, and to boost your business performance. You're not doing it for just one of these. You're doing it for all three. And trying to find how much of this you do on the front stage, how much of this you do on the backstage, and how much of this you do to actually start tracking and managing profitability of your business. That is the struggle of any business, because you need to do all three in order to do this. And the reason why you need to accelerate digital transformation efforts. So how long has your organization been doing digital transformation? Pick one of these and just tell me, is it number 1? Is it number 2? Is it number 3? Is it number 4? Share this via chat. So to speed it up, just type in a number 1 through 4. And I see one of you saying you're in number 2. One of you saying 3. Anybody else? Come on, people, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Make a choice. It's not a hard number. 1. So I see I see a 1. I see a 2, 3, 4. You're all over the place here in this audience, right? So even though you may not necessarily be in the same industry, you're all, in one of these is what this is, what the chat is, what you're sharing via chat. Here is what an organization that is, their last one was done in May of 2020. This is what they published, and they actually surveyed people, and here's the same responses, right? If you picked 1 and 2, you're in the majority of everybody. That's majority, 34%, 31%. That is 65% of organizations who are here or here. And 25%, if you look at this, that's the majority of you. That's 80%, 90% of companies, only a few that are leaders. And we're going to talk about how are these companies doing in today's crisis, because they're leading in digital transformation compared to anybody else, and not just their competitors, everybody else across industries, right? This is Zoom. This is the example of Zoom when they were go to webinar, WebEx, other legacy video conferencing. Zoom is here. Let's talk about other things. So what leaders are saying is the people that lead, right? The leaders of digital transformation are also more profitable than anybody else. When the intermediates and beginners are the ones that are in 1, 2, or 3 categories, the leaders that are in that 10% are clearly more profitable than anybody else in the same industry and the same market. This is why you want to do digital transformation, especially if you want to become more profitable than your direct competitors in the same market once recovery begins. Here's an example. Amazon, they've been around for a long time. Walmart in retail, they actually started Walmart.com, I want to say about 7 years ago. And just last year, Walmart.com that is rivaling Amazon became number 2 in e-commerce sales in North America. Why? Because Walmart, a retailer, invested in Walmart.com to compete against Amazon and anybody else who wants to be like Amazon. And right now, Walmart.com is growing still faster, even today's post-pandemic economy, because what? A unique value proposition that only Walmart can deliver. That is, now you can order either on their website, on their app, and you can either choose deliver within a day or 2, just like Amazon, or you can choose to pick up at a store near you And they have a drive-through model that says once you shop and you pick the location nearest you, you can just drive through and somebody will bring out the package that you just bought and put it in your car. You don't even need to go to the store at all. It's a drive-through model, and Amazon cannot match because they don't have the retail locations that Walmart does, because Walmart is the largest retailer in North America. And right now they're expanding. No matter what type of Walmart, you can pick up and drive through any kind of anything you buy from walmart.com, whether it's a mobile app or their website. So 7 steps to digitize is, number 1, to accelerate digital transformation. This is what you must do. You want to set aspiring goals, not just the easy things to do. You want to have big, audacious goals in mind. This is done by the owners, by the executives, not the senior managers or the workers. It's got to be the C-suite to be doing number 1. Then you got to build the right leadership team. Does that sound kind of the same as the first 2 steps of building business resilience? Yes. Assess your situation. Focus on the customer journey, because now if things have changed, you now need to understand buyer behavior and make sure you get it right. Not because they're going to tell you, is because you have to go outside your building and find out what are your customers doing now, and test to make sure that you understand the new journey that they're going through now. Then adapt your value proposition so you can actually start boosting perceived value by your customers. Evolve your business model, and then be nimble and data-driven, meaning agile and quick to put together solutions as to how you digitize your entire business. So here's number 1, set aspiring goals. And aspiring goals means that you have now 3 horizons to plan for while you're still planning your business continuity and how you're going to persevere. Because here it is about maintaining business continuity and remain cash flow positive. But if you need to do optimization and rescale your business to keep up with current demand, you need to also plan for building resilience, return back to the next normal, reimagine the future, and start digitizing across these 2 horizons. And none of these horizons are about today's revenue or even this year's revenue, because when this is time from today to future, the x-axis, you need to move from a business continuity that is mostly about optimization to, over time, as you get to forward in time, you want to start not only optimizing, but also explore. And each one of these steps requires exploration of different types that you need to start budgeting for, fund today. And you're going to spend only a portion of your budget to do this and continue to remain cash flow positive. The remainder has to be staggered across these 2 horizons to boost resilience and speed up, accelerate digital transformation. That's if you want to grow quicker than your competition. Here's an example of Uber and Lyft. How many of you are actually doing any ride sharing right now, right? This is what happens. Demand went down for both. Guess what? Lyft was actually growing faster than Uber in North America before COVID-19. And they're on track to continue growing faster as soon as recovery starts. They're both digital. They're purely digital companies today. But Lyft has now acquired funding, and they're actually the drivers. If you talk to drivers, if you interview drivers, which I have, drivers on Uber hate Uber because they weren't hired by a taxi company and they took them out of business if they were taxi drivers, and now they're Uber drivers and they hate Uber. Lyft drivers, they're really in love with Lyft. I was like, and many of them that are both rather take more business from Lyft than from Uber. And that's exactly why Lyft is growing faster in North America, because it's not about the hailers, it's about the drivers. And when you need drivers, and that's how you're making money transactionally for either one of these offerings, Lyft is capturing the drivers, and drivers are creating loyalty through some of those hailers. Build the right team. And this means that transformation begins with people, not technology. Most people think that digital transformation is about adoption of technology. Well, it is, but you're not gonna, if you have people in a culture that is averse to new technology, what's the likelihood that you can have the greatest solution that is all digital and none of your workers are going to be using it? That's reality. So transformation, digital transformation is number one, business transformation first. And any business transformation, if you have done any change management before, it starts with people, your workers, across functions, and figure out what they need to actually become more productive, even though you may need to trim down, cut down the workforce, even though you might need to let go of contractors and only keep essential personnel, not everybody, right? These are all the things that start here. And then over time, those people, functions, cross-functional teams put together new processes, new systems, new tools for automation, and make sure those processes are being used by everybody that's a core business function within your organization, and apply that to your products. And over time, that by itself will give you more profit. But it starts with people, then the process, apply that to the entire portfolio, trim your portfolio, and continue to increase the revenue streams, and that translates to more profit. So you're reshaping the business by focus. Focus on the right people first, focus on the right processes to automate, focus on the right products to remain in market, and then expand your revenue streams for those products. And that by itself creates profit over time. That's what transformations should be all about. No different for digital transformation. You're now integrating the best technology that allows you to automate processes and make it easy for people to do more with less, by automating some things, making it easy for them to do analysis. For example, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Dunkin', Starbucks. Chick-fil-A today, even though it's only a North American play, and by design, they're only open 6 days out of any week. Location by location, Chick-fil-A before and even today is more profitable than any McDonald's location in North America, even though there are McDonald's that are open 24/7. Yes, McDonald's has a revenue advantage. Chick-fil-A is more profitable location by location, just selling chicken sandwiches. Actually, Chick-fil-A alone has made chicken sandwich the #1 food category in North America, because that's what they've done for the last 5 years. It's not burgers anymore. We're consuming more chicken sandwiches compared to burgers or hot dogs or anything else. Dunkin' with coffee is outgrowing Starbucks, and Dunkin' is more profitable than Starbucks. And yes, Starbucks is a global, both of these are McDonald's and Starbucks are global brands. Dunkin' is mostly a regional brand, North America. They're expanded in somewhat limited abroad, but very limited. And they're more profitable. And if you drink their coffee, if you're a coffee snub, which I am, their coffee is pretty much the same as Starbucks, just not as expensive. You're not overpaying for your coffee when you're drinking from Dunkin'. Marcia, see, you're agreeing with me. Sorry to break the news to Starbucks users, because you need to try Dunkin'. They do have an app, by the way. It says your situation, right? Situation brings context to your business strategy. And before you even start designing any new strategy for your business, because now you need to reset your strategy for your entire organization, you need to have context. And context means you have to have all of these things analyzed, track the numbers, figure out who are the players, and then the numbers when it comes to competitors, customer segments that you're selling into, your company performance, your collaborators. That includes both on the backstage side, but also on the front stage side, which is distribution channels. So that's on the revenue side, distribution channels. On the backstage side is partners and suppliers. That's all part of understanding your current situation. And I've seen that many organizations have no clue how to do this, because this is not available. This takes a lot of work to do, to make decisions. But for the lack of doing this and having a clarity of your context, you may have a great strategy, and guess what? It may be the wrong strategy, or it's not even an actionable It's not deployable strategy, right? And you want your strategy to make sense, not just business sense. Make sure that it's executable, actionable, and that you know how to measure success. All of these things you are not going to do if you don't understand the context as to why you're changing your strategy. And top 5 core business functions that are within your organization. Any of these are within any business, depending on what type of business you're in or your industry, your market. Usually, most organizations, when they need to accelerate digitization, it's at least 5 or more of these core business functions that need to be digitized over time. And you're not going to be able to do it all at the same time. You need to take a phased approach. And this is why business transformation, similar to digital transformation, is a program, not a project. Because you do some and then you start again. It's a phased approach, and you continue doing it, and you continue to get better and better over time. No different than when you first start using Agile for developing any product, if you guys have used Agile before. So business functions and the core business functions, and now we arrive to our next great study. How many of you are Airbnb users? And what is happening to Airbnb? Marsha, me too. So here's what happened. Last year, Airbnb was the largest as far as the properties, because they're a global company today, and basically had more properties than Marriott headquartered in Bethesda. But last year, Marriott had the opportunity to buy Starwood, both global brands, and with that acquisition, which they actually went through last year, and they're in the middle of merger integration right now, combining Starwood properties with Marriott. They created the Marriott Bonvoy. And with this acquisition of Starwood, Marriott went back up, number of properties, number of rooms available around the world. They were bigger than Airbnb. And today, with just one application, one loyalty program, rewards program called the Marriott Bonvoy, which they launched last year. I want to say June, July of last year. They're now taking in orders, because you can book no matter what type of Marriott brand you want to stay at, from a Ritz-Carlton to a Courtyard to any Starwood brands that are now owned by Marriott. You can book and get points, get rewards, loyalty through digital channels. And right now, they're both down. But these guys are losing a little bit, not much. These guys, they actually announced last week 25% workforce reduction around the world, because they're tanking right now, right? Nobody's doing any Airbnb anywhere in the world right now. There's a few of us that are doing it domestically, if it's driving distance, not flying distance. So that means that, we might be doing a vacation. If there's a summer vacation for you guys, you might be going to maybe Virginia Beach and Airbnb-ing somewhere there. Or maybe going to North Carolina or something that is within a day driving distance, each way. That's it. That's not the majority, because there's no international traveling, and we're certainly not going to be the ones that are going to be Airbnb-ing across the West Coast anytime soon, because most of us don't feel safe to be flying. And that's reality for Airbnb. So not only did they have to reduce the workforce in order for them to actually start planning how they're going to continue scaling, because they're doing a lot of data-driven. These guys are pure. Airbnb is digital to begin with. They were born digital, and they've been nothing but digitizing more and more to get better and better at what they do. So right now, they actually not only reduced the workforce, but they also got funding so that they can stay viable in the market. They can continue operating even with a 25% workforce reduction. They can continue to make some money, and they raised $2 billion. Now, I don't know what their burn rate is. I don't think they're planning on recovery being in the next 2 or 3 years. I think, $2 billion is going to last them longer than 2 or 3 years. But that's what they have already. They have it in their bank account today. So that's a great way to say, hey, we have a way that we can continue figuring out how to improve our offering and get better than anybody else. So focus on the customer journey. And what does that mean? Well, if you're in food service, has any of you remember those downloaded, that enormous amount of downloads of mobile applications into our phones worldwide I spoke about at the beginning of the talk? Here's where the majority of us are actually doing, right? Here in North America, we've downloaded not just Domino's or whatever, food ordering app we have. We're now putting in Uber Eats, DoorDash, Postmasters, Grubhub. These are the top 5 food delivery apps in US as of last month. So some of you that are new users to you probably is because you were maybe a Grubhub user and now you installed any of these or maybe all of these in your phones. Because we're not just buying from one brand. We're basically saying whatever we want to feel like eating that's nearby that we can just carry out or order delivery, that's what we're doing. And Domino's by itself, which is just for Domino's, is actually number 3 because they actually began digitizing 7 years ago. They're one of the digital leaders. They just happen to be selling pizza, not chicken sandwiches like Chick-fil-A. And Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, and Postmasters are all like, any brand that is near you. Now it's a conglomerate, but they actually are charging the restaurants for delivery or carry out on a transactional basis. Different model than Domino's. And Domino's right now is killing it. Because how many of you have been ordering pizza on a weekly basis? And how often in a week? And they're Domino's is number 1 compared to any other pizza location. Pizza Hut included, any of their competitors in North America, they are just killing it right now. Adapt your value proposition. When you need to boost perceived value, you got to figure out, it's not just about retention. If you're increasing customer value, you're going to work hard to increase your perceived customer value. You got to acquire. And that means you have to market. And you have to figure out how to digitally market to acquire new customers. You're not necessarily going to be engaging them on Zoom, but you need to kind of figure out how they can find your application or your website and get them to sign up. Sign up to something that you're offering on a digital channel. So there's a lot of digital marketing in acquisition. Evolve your business model, meaning that you have to now improve across all 3 as before. Here's an example of some of the other companies that are manufacturers in North America that is emerging. Because how many of you have had to find an N95 mask whenever you go out for whatever it is, shopping or carry out, getting carry out, whatever it is? These are all N95 mask manufacturers. And yes, both 3M and Kimberly-Clark are global manufacturers of N95 masks. Honeywell and Moldex are more regional. And all 3 of these cannot produce N95 masks fast enough for all of us because it's not just for construction workers anymore, right? N95 masks have been used by construction workers for a long time. Now it's everybody, all 300 million plus citizens, including adults and kids, looking for an N95 mask. And you know what happened to the pricing of N95 masks? How many of you have actually bought N95 masks before, like sometime last year or the year before? On the average, we were paying no more than 70 cents per mask. Now the same N95 mask, how much are you guys paying? No less than maybe $8 to $10 per mask. This is not gouging. This is just an opportunity because all of us are now buying, and these people know it's only temporary because it's until there is a vaccine, we're all going to have to be buying masks, not just construction workers. This is a temporary surge in demand, not permanent, and these guys know it. And this is why everybody's like trying to figure out how to make them, because they can up their price by more than 15 times what the average is in a normal market. So there's a lot of speculation. Be nimble and data-driven. You got to have new metrics. And new metrics means that even if you're using the balanced scorecard, you better make sure that all of these are analytics that you've added to your digital analytics platform that you're adopting to track your financial performance, how you're doing as far as developing of new or improved business processes, what you're doing to actually train and retrain your your workers, your cross functions that are critical part of your core business, so they can adopt processes and maybe do more with less people, and make sure that it's a multiplier effect. Your process can become a multiplier only if you train your people on how to follow the right processes with the new tools that you have now in place. And looking at customer retention and customer acquisition. And either one of those, you're tracking also how much they're buying at any one time and how often. And you're trying to up both, up the average order size and also increase the frequency of the purchases across both retained customers and new customers. And those are different metrics if you haven't done that before. That's what profitability means, because across the entire thing, you're measuring and you need to deploy analytics so that your executives, your senior managers can start tracking each one of these independently, but also have a dashboard that allows your owners, your executives to see how you're doing overall when it comes to profitability and how resilient your business really is. Because over time, this is working, your organization will become more profitable than all of your direct competitors in the same market. No different than the Domino's example or the Zoom example I gave you earlier. And you can accelerate by using an agile approach to the way you deploy digital transformation and analytics throughout your organization. You can have stand-ups, you can have teams, and you can have people that are your workers telling you this would work, this wouldn't work, and here's why. And you can actually do the actual development of the right things in an agile approach as you go through. Here's an example of another one that is rising. How many of you are IKEA users? Have shopped at IKEA, go there at least once or twice a month? Marsha, we have to hang out sometime. So, and Wayfair, right? They're both now selling the same thing. Now, Wayfair is digital because it's furniture just via an app or a web portal. That's their model. That's how they started. And they've been killing it right now because nobody is going to a furniture store, or they can't even go to IKEA because it's closed. It's a non-essential business up until last week. And even now, who wants to stay in line when, that if you ever been to IKEA, you know what happens on the weekends, right? There's lots of people, and those people, they can't go all in right now into the store because there's social distancing inside the store. And so what happens to the lines? It's an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours to get into IKEA. And that's not acceptable for many of us, right? We love IKEA, but it's not just worth it. So we're all ordering Wayfair because those of us that are working from home, I have a question for you guys. How many of you are now that are working from home, your employer, your organization, whatever it has to your employer, are actually having a stipend for you to buy furniture that you're missing because you might have a place, but you don't have a good ergonomic desk for doing business out of your home, or a printer or any of that? How many of you are getting any kind of stipend? And this is why people are actually buying from Wayfair, because they're buying office furniture for their home. And that is right, giving them a rise in sales. Wayfair, not IKEA. These are sales that are going to Wayfair because they were digital leaders compared to IKEA. And yes, IKEA has a plan to deploy more digital stuff, not just retail, but they got stuck in the middle because they're not ready to deploy in US. They're only beta testing right now at best in US, IKEA. So right now, Wayfair is killing it because they actually are a digital leader as a furniture e-commerce seller. 7 steps, 1 through 7, we talked about it. So this is kind of like key takeaways. You set aspiring goals, you build your team, you assess your situation, focus on the customer journey, figure out how to boost your perceived value, and then adapt your value proposition accordingly evolve your business model and digitize, and measure through analytics. Both digitization and analytics is what you need to be nimble and data-driven. That is a summary, and I have a question for you guys. How easy is it for a small business or a mid-market company to do all of these things? Because what I just said, you got to do not just the steps here, but also the previous steps if you want to do resilience and digitization. And this is what McKinsey, Bain, Boston Consulting Group, all these big companies are saying. These are the only companies that are going to actually scale back faster than everybody else, are the ones that are willing to invest in the future of the company. And that is maybe significant investment in the next 2 or 3 years, waiting for recovery to occur. Not for the faint of heart. So before we get into any Q&A, because now we're going to start the Ask Me Anything. And I don't know if somebody checked me on time, but I want to allow at least a few questions. I'm hoping that you guys have been typing in your questions as I go through, because I've been trying to go pretty quickly through this entire thing. I'm starting Bold PM Academy. Now, Bold PM Academy is a series of virtual workshops that you can sign up. They're 2-hour workshops. They're going to be how-tos. And the one that's coming up soon, you can actually click through the sign up link. They're on Eventbrite. They're available there. But you can, this helps you, any of you who are right now either unemployed or unhappily employed, or even you're overwhelmed with work and you're not really sure whether you're going to be in the same organization 2 months, 3 months from now because of things not going so well, in spite of everything that you're doing. You need to figure out, first of all, number one, when you're spending the majority of your time that you're working from home, living in a Zoom video conference, one after another, back-to-back Zoom video conferences, you've got to figure out how to elevate your presence on a video conference for business. If it's your stand-ups or if it's about keeping track of what's going on with all the different players that you're working with, you're Zooming. This is about you appearing to be in a position of authority as a manager, as a leader within your company. This is about how you do it. And I actually have teamed up with a leading executive presence consultant who will actually walk us through how to elevate your presence when you are stuck trying to figure out how to remain in a management position or in a leadership position, whether you're looking for a promotion or stay in and be able to effectively manage teams that are now all virtual teams. So that's coming up this weekend. Next week, I teamed up with Carl Pritchard. Those of you who know Carl Pritchard, he is a project management guru. Actually, he's a risk management guru because he actually created the risk management credential that is part of the PMP RMP. And we're teaming up to talk about product management, which is me. I've been doing that for probably as long as Carl has been doing project management, and we're going to compare and contrast. So if you're in an organization that has both roles, product management and project management, or you might have product ownership if you're using Agile, we're going to talk about why organizations are struggling in figuring out how to do resource allocations across 2 critical business functions that need to be staffed. Not by one person, a team in each of the functions. And this is where most organizations try to save money by having a person that is a project manager, product owner, and a product manager. And that's the equivalent of shooting yourself in the head as an organization. You don't want to be working in that organization. And we're going to talk about that in this particular workshop. It's next Wednesday. You can sign up on Eventbrite. You can click through that. Then I'm also teaming up with Charlie Burney. Charlie, who's an author and also founder of Podcast Village. This is my partner that produces all the great podcasts and videos from anything that I record. He is actually giving a workshop on how you can start your own podcast successfully. And this is how you can actually deploy your personal brand, if that's what you want to do, to actually be heard. If you're actually now looking to connect with people, increasing people who you know, that maybe may at some point be ready to actually bring you on board to their organization. We're going to be doing this in June, and these are all the workshops that are coming up in June. We're going to be announcing later on in July, August, additional. These are all Zoom webinars or meetings, and these are all on Eventbrite. If you want more information about any of these, you can go there, or you can actually reach out to me. And I want to turn it around to Marcia. Is that you that's going to be moderating, fielding the questions?
Yes, thank you, Hector. Wow, a lot of information, a lot of food for thought. I'm just gonna share my screen real quick. So I hope everyone had a lot of takeaways from this awesome presentation. Just want to say thank you again, Hector, for being our guest speaker today. We're going to have time for a few questions. We're cutting it close. But first, again, we want to say thank you to Hector, and we will be presenting you with a certificate that will be sent to you in the mail. Okay, and just wanted to put a plug in for our July 8th speaker. That'll be Wednesday, July 8th. We're having Erica Flora of Beyond 20 at Creative Solution LLC, and she will be talking about surviving and thriving as project leaders in uncertain times. So again, that's our next dinner meeting, July 8th with Erica Flora. Okay, so like I said, we have time for a few questions, maybe 5. We are cutting it very close, and we're trying to get you guys out here. We might be running about 5 minutes or so over. So if you type your question in the chat, we have Antonio who is moderating our questions. And Antonio, if you have any for Hector, can you go ahead with those, please?
All right, Hector, I think you really knocked it out of the park. There are no questions.
Either that or I put everybody to sleep.
But anyway, awesome presentation. Looks like we have a comment here. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say that if you're interested in business podcasts, launched Open School of Business in February, and if you're interested, you can sign up to be a guest speaker there.
Yeah, and I actually also shared my information as well with everyone on if you're interested in setting up an exploration video conference with me to discuss, if you are actually in a leadership position within your company where you're trying to figure out how to persevere through the current environment, and just reach out to me. We can actually at least I can point you in the right direction. I will also share everything that we discussed today. And I also have done, this is actually my second presentation this month on the same topic. And I have captured from the previous webinar that I did more details about the steps that I went through today. And I will actually post that information on the post-event page. So if you actually sign up on the link that I sent earlier, I'm going to send it out again today, because you will get an auto reply once you sign up. And then I will send you a link to the post-event page that I'm setting up. And I'm going to send the link right now via the chat, just so you have the ability to do that. So if you just follow through that short URL, that's a bit.ly short URL that I just sent out, that brings you to a web form. Click the sign up button, submit it, and then within a couple of days, I'll have the post-event page set up with the video and the slides. And I will share that with you. I'll send you an email with the link where you can actually view this. And it has also references where many of the things that I spoke about, where you can actually go and dig deeper, because this is available information. You just have to find it. And I will include hyperlinks to those references that I use from McKinsey, from Bain, and a few others that are publicly available.
Hector, it looks like you have a question here from Anar. Have you seen more PM jobs open up or actually slow down?
So right now, what I've seen is, at least at the executive level, like senior managers, they're actually about the same. I'm seeing a lot of activity right now. And actually, it's pretty easy to find out, because if you're on LinkedIn and you have a job search, agent set up, which you can do even with a free account. You can actually do that, for any area in US or anywhere in the world for that matter. And you can actually see the flow, and the flow is not necessarily slowing down. So for project management right now, it may not necessarily be GovCons, meaning government contractors that are hiring right now. I'm seeing a lot of activity in commercial companies that are hiring. And unfortunately, there's not many of those here near us, but I am seeing a good flow in the rest of US when these are PM, project management positions within commercial companies. So one example is Amazon is hiring right now, just like Walmart is, and not just for the teller or the cashiers or the people at the store. These are the people working behind the scenes on the back end, right? The backstage that are doing the packaging, the distribution, and logistics of packages that are being sent to and from, because both Walmart and Amazon are being overwhelmed with orders online. And they're hiring people who can do logistics of tracking packages that they're shipping to and from.
Okay, great.
Great. Just one more question. Looks like we have here.
Yes.
So this one is from Mitra. So is the presentation training specific to Zoom?
No, this could be any video conference. So whether you're using any video conferencing application, whether it's Teams, Zoom, WebEx, it's just about figuring out how to actually have a presence where you're talking to people and you're making eye contact even though they're not in the room, right? This is all about making sure that you capture people's attention even when they're not physically next to you, being able to do that and elevate your presence when you're in a business video conference.
Perfect. Last call for questions. Any questions? All right, Hector, thank you so much. Marcy, I think I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Antonia. And once again, applause to Mr. Hector Castillo for being our June virtual presenter. Again, he shared a lot of information. Please do take advantage of the links that he has provided, the different training that he's going to have. I mean, it's a lot of food for thought, a lot of fruits that you will be able to take advantage of. And also, this information will be posted on the website. Yes.
Yes.
All right. I just want to say, Hector, thank you for your fine presentation there. And I want to thank everybody for attending tonight's meeting. It was a great meeting. Thanks everybody for pulling it together. And again, it was a great topic and very informative presentation. So thanks again.
And thank you. It's my pleasure. Thanks so much, David, and everyone else at the PMI Silver Spring chapter for hosting this meeting and for inviting me as well. It was a great pleasure, and I hope to see everyone at the upcoming symposium later this year.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and attendance. Have a great night. Hector, wish you all the best.
Thank you. You too. Stay safe and be well.
You as well.